Okay, it looks like there's really something in this Eze stuff. Fabrizio Romano has come out and confirmed that contact was made on the weekend. Arsenal spoke to Eberechi Eze's camp. Hand of Arsenal's gone a step further and said not only was there talks on a Saturday, but Arteta himself was involved in what I think was described as explorative talks. And you get my point. Arsenal exploring the deal. And that is, I think, the information from Alex Crook and Ben Jacobs before, which came out at the end of last week. Not that sort of there was explorative talks or anything, but that he was certainly on a list. Now, we know that Rodrigo is a player that Arsenal are really liking, but that's a really complicated situation with Real Madrid. We know that pre-season tours in about 3 weeks. They return for pre-season about a week, 10 days or so. And Arteta wants to have his group, especially as there's a Club World Cup, that doesn't affect Arsenal, but there's no kind of major international tournaments outside of Ethan Nwaneri. By the way, congrats to him, winning the under 21 Euros with England. Basically he's going to have pretty much his squad back, Mikel. And I think he's, wanting to get players in early. A lot of the reports from last week were that things were ramping up on the Gyökeres and Sesko front. And that, decision time is coming because there's a big pre-season ahead for Arsenal. Now, taking all that into account and what Fabrizio Romano has been saying now, that explorative talks have kind of begun, that Arsenal are sort of, considering the deal in some way. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially the message. There's not been a bid. There's no personal terms agreed. We're not sitting here saying, yep, this is definitely happening. But there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more weight to it than we realise at first. Now, Eze, I'm a huge fan of. As a left winger, it's fascinating. I did a podcast with Ben, and we went through all the left wingers, and I don't think we talked about Eze. We might have done, but I don't think we did, because he's more of a... Did we? He's more of a left winger slash 10. He's like how Grealish moved wide. And when you're playing with that kind of wide player, you're actually asking something different of them. But he's still a very good ball carrier, and Arsenal play a lot of their football in the final third. We rarely hit teams on transition, so he's probably a really good fit, actually, for that left-hand side. And while I don't love the left-winger market, I think if you're talking how many players out there can make a real difference and really improve Arsenal, Eberechi Eze is one of them. He is a match winner. He scored 2 goals at Wembley in the semi-finals and the final to help Palace win their first ever trophy in the club's history. He can do it off the left, central spaces. On the right, he looks comfortable, though I wouldn't put him there. He's someone you can cover for Ødegaard if Ødegaard's not at it. We know he wasn't last season. We also know that Eze's a player who, can function as in central spaces off the left, or you could use him as the left 8 and then have Ødegaard and Eze with the Declan Rice behind. You can do a few things, and I think in the way Arteta wanted to use Smith Rowe last season, you could see Eze maybe playing that particular role in the team. You could see him, maybe Ødegaard drops into the midfield too, or maybe Eze does play in the midfield too, because I think Patrick Vieira once used Eze and Elise here in the midfield 3. I don't know, I might have got that wrong. But basically, he's got experience playing in central areas of the pitch. Very, very technical footballer. This is a guy who's good with both feet, who's good in wide areas, who's good centrally, but typically better centrally. He beats players not because of blistering pace, and he's not slow, by the way, he's far from it. But he beats players because he's got incredible guile and incredible silk and tech with what he does. The drop of the shoulder, when he picks his movements to take a player on, go on the inside, outside, whatever it is, he really hurts players. He really hurts teams. But I think where this is a clever bit of business for Arsenal, and where I can understand there is a leaning towards an Eze over Rodrigo, if that's the case, and for some of the fan base that is, where I can understand it is the fact that he's a player who answers a lot of problems for Arsenal. Whether Ødegaard's in great form but you want 2 10s, you can bring him in. If Martinelli discovers the form of, 2 years ago, I appreciate it's been a while, but if he does, then that's a player you can kind of count on there. With sort of Saka and Martinelli wide and Eze still playing in central space and finding another place in this team. I think he's so good he could play as a false 9. Just gives a lot of variety, and I can see Arsenal thinking there's a little bit more value in that move, because then Trossard and Martinelli have more of a part to play in the squad. They are not bad players, they're very good players. They just haven't been the answer for where we want to be. And maybe Arteta thinks, we can kind of get the best of all of them, because there's real fluidity and versatility in the way we use them. But I'm trying to understand Arsenal's transfer strategy here. Why has this all become so public? Why are we hearing about Eze so much now? Because if he really was a backup plan to Rodrigo, then you'd think this would all come up around the end of July, that this Rodrigo stuff would really sort of sort itself out, and then Arsenal would go and make a decision whether Rodrigo was the deal to do or whether they were going to pivot to another option. Unless they feel that Eze is available, there are rumours, I think I've talked about, of a £20 million instalment plan that you can do with Eze for this release clause of 67 million. Maybe they think that's really doable and it means actually we can do quite a lot this summer. Because a lot of people, and I actually agree with them, think we need a 10 and a left winger and a striker. I need to change my expectations of Arsenal. I've just seen Chelsea go spend, 40 million on Delap, 50 million on João Pedro, and they've got Nicholas Jackson. I mean, that is, by the way, I'm not saying that those are the players I wanted at Arsenal, but at least they're not leaving any stone unturned. They do spend big money. Why can Arsenal not go and add a 10 and a left winger and a striker on top of Zubimendi and Norgard? Yes, you're adding a lot into the midfield and forward positions, but that's what Arsenal need. We were so short last season in those areas, and I would love to see Arsenal be ambitious like that and do it. Here's my theory. The more starts to emerge about Eze, the more I think that actually Arsenal are happy to do this deal independent of anything else. I think they want Eze. Stuff starting to emerge from Alex Crook, from Ben Jacobs, from Fabrizio Romano. Reliable people. Right? This isn't just rumour stuff. This isn't just a rumour that's generated by the want of the fan base. This is something I think actually has legs. So I think Arsenal want Eze, and I think they're exploring this deal, and I don't actually think it's him or Rodrigo. I think Arsenal are expecting to do Eze and a striker, and I actually think by mid-July and tour, we might have all our positions addressed. But I think they see Rodrigo as an opportunity that if it comes up in August, they would be ready to do. They would be on hand, ready to sanction that deal, a bit like Thomas Partey on deadline day in 2020. And Ozil in 2014. I think it's that kind of deal. If available, the club think it's too good an opportunity to miss and they'll do it. I also think they have started to emerge, very slow. So I haven't covered it on the Goonerverse too because I think they're very loose rumours, but it's starting to emerge that there might be some interest from clubs in Saudi Arabia for Gabriel Martinelli. If there is, and if they are willing to pay serious money, I could see there being a case where end of July, money comes in for a Gabriel Martinelli, maybe a £60 million offer, and Arsenal think, well, we've added Eze, we've added, let's say, Sesko, Zubimendi, Norgard, Mosquera, Kepa. So that's 6 positions, right? Sorry, Kepa, Mosquera, the 2 defensive midfielders, Eze and Sesko, so 6, right? I think there's a chance that they look at that and go, 60 million for Martinelli out, 80 million for Rodrigo in. Eze himself was only 20 million this summer and a £67 million deal. And I think they'd feel they had all bases covered. And you know what? I'd agree with them. I would feel that if your options are next season, Zubimendi Norgard, Marino Rice, Ødegaard Eze, and I think they play together, but, the point is you've got 2 potential 10s there, with Rodrigo and Trossard, Sesko, Havertz, Jesus, Saka and Waneri. I think you can ask questions of quality, not many, because I think Ødegaard at his best, Eze at his best, Rodrigo, these are top players. And then you've got Saka, of course. The question would be over whether the 9 fires immediately. But then Waneri's a year older, lewis-skelly can play midfield. I'd go into next season. If Arsenal did that, even if we lost Martinelli, if Arsenal did that, I would go, wow. I think you actually addressed everything. You replenished the midfield 6s. You went and got yourself an attacking midfielder, which I think we needed in the squad. A young centre-back Mosquera. Romano said on Sunday that personal terms have been agreed. Sorry about the door shutting. The wind's making a noise. Young. I'd say Arsenal did everything. I'd say that's a 10 out of 10 window if Arsenal did that. Let's see if they do, because sales and the money you get for those sales are important as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. That is my theory, that Eze might well be independent of Rodrigo, and that Rodrigo is more a case of an opportunity if that comes, but it might take a while. And this is such a big season. I don't see Arsenal and Arteta risking such a massive deal and such a massive position going that late into the winter, unless they had so much clarity on Rodrigo's situation and so much belief is going to happen. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you in a bit.